Hey everyone, welcome back to the 235 Film Podcast. This season, we are exploring 10 classic sci-fi films from the 20th century. In this episode, Brandt and I are taking a closer look at the unsuccessful but lovable adaptation to one of the greatest sci-fi novels ever written, David Lynch's 1984 science fiction fantasy epic, Dune. Hey Brandt.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going all right.
Here we
are.
How
about you? How are you doing?
Very good. Very good.
That's good.
Yes.
Hey, we watched Dune. This past week.
Yes, Dune.
Actually, I finished it just last night.
David Lynch's Dune.
Sorry, no, yesterday afternoon. First time watching it.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it's not your first time?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought.
Yeah, remember, no, last week's episode was not the Terminator, the one before that.
Which one was the one before that? I'm getting confused now. The Thing?
Yeah, The Thing was the last episode of this season where it'll be my first time.
No, dude, I'm so confused.
Remember?
I can't remember. No, I don't remember.
We had this convection in the last episode.
Anyways,
I hadn't
regardless.
seen The Thing, but I've seen the Terminator, Dune, and so on and so forth.
So on and so forth.
Anyways,
yeah, first time for me.
Yes. Dude, what?
Interesting.
What an experience, am I right?
So how many times have you watched this?
1 plus this last one, 2.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. No, yeah. I was surprised, to say the least. I was surprised.
Surprised in what?
This is probably like the least David Lynch film I've seen.
Yeah, potentially. Or some would say it's the most David Lynch film.
No.
Some would say.
I feel like a lot of what we see comes from like Herbert, from his novel.
Potentially.
I think there are definitely elements of David Lynch here at play.
Yeah.
Like but it's not nearly enough. Yeah. But it's not nearly enough to qualify this as like David Lynch's Dune. I don't feel like this is David Lynch's Dune. You know what I mean?
Alan
like I feel like that's
Smithy's
how
Dune?
people like. Huh?
Is it Alan Smithy's Dune?
No, right.
For those of you who don't know, who Alan Smithy is a pseudonym that directors use when they bail on projects that they don't dig after production's over.
Which
that was the case here.
David Lynch has, multiple times.
Yeah, specifically this one though. This one was credited to Alan Smithy because at the end, I think he felt like he got screwed by production.
Yeah.
By the.
Well, I mean, apparently there was like 4 to 5 hours of. Like his first cut was 4 to 5 hours long.
Yeah.
And then it got trimmed down to
217.
217. Okay.
Yeah.
So, which it sounds kind of long if you think about like how long movies were back then, but
here's what
not nearly
I'll say.
long enough for a novel of this magnitude.
And that's what I've read everywhere. It's like David Lynch was given this project to take this massive. The first Dune novel is massive. Like the ones that follow aren't as big, but the first one is so much content. So he was given this project and he was projected with now take this entire novel and squeeze it into what they wanted to be 2 minutes or 2 hours and 17 minutes long. So it's like, I mean, on the adverse in the beginning, the first cut that we saw from anybody who took on this project cinematically was 14 hours long. So it's like,
yeah, I was gonna say when Alejandro, how do you say his last name?
Yeah, Jodorowsky is what I've come to.
Jodorowsky.
He's French, right?
No, he's Chilean.
Chilean, yes.
Yeah, but I think he's got some kind of European in him as well.
Yeah, he works or runs a French like production company or something like that. But
the production team that he always worked with was French. But yeah, totally. He had like 14 to 20 hours, like is what he wanted to go with.
Right, which makes sense.
Which is insane.
I mean, what we're talking about here is pure. I mean, even just reading the first couple of chapters of the novel, it's pure exposition. Like, there's so much content that has to be explained, and like we're
how far
have
you gotten to the novel?
Oh, you said I finished two chapters. Yeah, so I mean, I've made it far enough to understand like the project that he's gotten.
I've gotten to the point. I think the last thing I read was right around 200 pages. Right through the scene where. You would know it from the movie where Duke Leto bites into his tooth, into that fake tooth,
and
the capsule. So I'm right around there on the novel. So I haven't read it all the way through yet, and I meant to read it all the way through for this episode, knowing that only a month from today would be the new Dune, Denis Villeneuve's Dune coming out. Because I wanted to be prepared for this episode and the next. But when I was very disappointed, as I'm sure you were, and everybody else.
Yeah, listening. I mean, that was kind of like one of the core foundations of our season here was like, oh man, we're going to plan this sucker out.
It's going to be perfectly timed. Yeah, it's going to be great. But yeah, so when Villeneuve's Dune got delayed a year, it kind of like took the wind right out of my sails as far as reading the book. So I kind of slowed down.
Exactly. But like, let's hit the history on this a little bit. So Jodorowsky, he was the first in 1971. He was the first director to be tasked with this as.
Well, so I watched Jodorowsky's Dune, which is like the documentary of Jodorowsky trying to get this film made. And it's very interesting because he was a controversial director, is a controversial director. He's still doing it. Yeah. And it's interesting because he did, I can't remember the first, it was a Spanish movie, and then he made another Spanish movie called El Topo. And after that, he got in contact with this French producer, which I can't remember the name of right now. And he was like, what do you want to do? And Frank Herbert had basically like a blank slate to do whatever he wanted, basically, from this producer. And he was like, Dune, because he had heard from a friend of his that this was an incredible novel, and it was like huge. At this point, the novel had been out for I don't know how many years at this point, and it was just a huge success. And
it came out in everybody, the 60s, right? So almost like 10 years,
maybe in the late 50s, I don't know. But he had heard that from everyone that had read it, that it was great. And I think he was dating somebody else, Salvador Dali's girlfriend at the time had read it, and she was trying to convince Salvador Dali to take the role that Jodorowsky wanted him to be in, which was the role of the emperor, which would have been a very crazy role. It's interesting because I think David Lynch takes maybe a little bit less. I guess we'll get there. We'll get there because we want to talk about the history first, right? Yeah. So Jodorowsky, he wanted to do Dune, and he hadn't even read it at that point. But he fell in love with the novel and wanted to really like do well by it. He hired a couple guys who had done art that he was really interested in. And in the documentary, he even mentions that he wanted people who had soul, like that were like spiritually connected to like what this movie would represent.
Sure.
So he was like kind of turning down people that he didn't feel like were spiritual enough, in a sense. So it's interesting.
The people he had on his project team. I mean, he had Dan O'Bannon on production design,
which we talked about in Alien.
Yeah, H.R. Geiger also was on that same team.
We didn't get to talk about in Alien,
right? But H.R. Geiger was like 50% of art conception for Alien in like a whole,
Alien, right? Yeah, right.
The xenomorph and every off-world piece of artistry that we see. So from the derelict ship to the contents, how that whole thing looks, the eggs, all that stuff was H.R. Geiger's inspiration.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean I've never been. Jodorowsky had worked on this for 2.5 years.
Right.
Before he just wasn't getting any financial backing. Well, nobody was backing him.
Let me ask you this.
He created like 3,000 storyboard, like individual storyboards for this film with his artists, including Dan O'Bannon, including Charlie Foss, I believe was his name, and Giger. And they created storyboards for every moment of the film. They storyboarded the entire film.
Oh, man.
And there's just a book about this big.
Yeah.
They made a whole book about this big and sent it to every studio in America, in Hollywood. Every single studio got one of those. And everybody would be impressed with that. But as soon as they took a meeting with them, they would be like almost turned off by Jodorowsky himself because he was so like out there.
That's crazy.
And the film never got made. And it's a huge disappointment. It's crazy though, because like the team that he gathered together went on to create some incredible stuff with Alien specifically. Like it was exactly that team that was the creative like juices behind Alien.
Yeah, we're looking at this is 11 years in the past before Alien got made and sent to theaters, right? 71. I guess 76 was when the project was ended for Jodorowsky's team. So I mean, but am I mistaken in believing that he had Frank Herbert write the screenplay for the movie, like how it was supposed to be depicted on screen?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think
dude, he did.
No, I don't think he wrote the script. Jodorowsky wrote the script for it.
He had Frank Herbert on his screenplay team. He
might have been, yeah.
He and Herbert.
I mean, Herbert was pretty close to the 84 David Lynch's version as well. He helped on that too.
Yeah, I know he had a lot of input on that, but I think he was that like you're saying, this was kind of like a blank slate, and I think Herbert wanted an opportunity to kind of reformat the book to screen, which I mean, 14 hours is. That's probably exactly what he was looking for. Like, I know what I want this to look like. And
well, it's interesting that you even mentioned that because like the multiple adaptations are David Lynch's version, and then there's the sci-fi series.
Have you watched any of that?
I have not seen the series at all, but I've heard it's better than Lynch's version.
Maybe as far as like explanation goes, but I would look back to 84, right? 84's Dune on set design and just visual appeasement versus 25 years or 15 years in the future towards this sci-fi series, dude. It looks so bad.
No, wait, which one looks bad?
Sci-fi.
The sci-fi series? Oh, yeah, but I mean, sci-fi series always look bad.
Boy, it's brutal, dude. It's brutal.
Yeah, I think they don't have much budget there. I mean, think about it. You have a huge budget for a 2-hour film, whereas you have to expand that budget versus over like the course of a whole season, whatever. So it makes sense. But anyways, I've heard that like they go so much more into detail with everything.
You know what it is? Herbert was on the next team.
Oh, okay.
So Jodorowsky and his team had written a script for this, and when it got picked up in that second party, because there was 3 different major like time points on the history of this film. There was the 71 to 76 period where Jodorowsky and his team were working on it. Then there was a tiny little sliver of time where De Laurent was working on it.
Oh yeah.
There was like a 2-year period where he was working on it. He's like this. He's like this Italian director who he also was sourced out from this production company, but it went from that 7-year period with
De Laurentiis.
Yep.
Oh, but he produced Lynch's Dune.
Yeah, but he had been tagged on.
He was trying to.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
he sourced out direction to Lynch afterwards. Yep. But Herbert rewrote the script that had been written for the first version of it to fit into Lynch's Dune.
Well, it's interesting because it makes sense now because I was reading that Lynch disowned this so much because of not only the cuts, but also because the producers were interjecting what they wanted into the film as well that he didn't want in the film. So Dino De Laurentiis, so it makes sense now that Dino De Laurentiis wanted to make a film before this, and when he didn't get that chance, he wanted to like contribute as much as possible to Lynch's version.
You know who was slated to take this film on first though?
Who?
Arthur P. Jacobs.
Oh, really? I heard that they tried to get Ridley Scott in on this.
Yeah, I think that was midway. I think it was like I think Scott came up in the meeting, but like they were like, oh, we watched all these films from these guys that we had like the option of choosing, and we think that Lynch's stylization probably fits our project the best. But yeah, dude, Arthur P. Jacobs was on first for this tiny little sliver of time. He turned it down. It got to Jodorowsky's team that way.
Well, but Ridley Scott was actually offered the
was he?
job. Yeah. And he turned it down to do Blade Runner.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Which, I mean, thank you.
Right.
I'm fine with that.
Right.
I'm so fine with that.
Exactly.
I don't think Ridley Scott... I just don't see Ridley Scott doing Dune... giving Dune his best either. Dune just had. This is why I'm really intrigued about Denis Villeneuve's version of Dune, is that he's splitting it into 2 films.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And I think
it's necessary.
You need to with the. It's such a huge novel. I'm
so
halfway through, and I feel like that could have been a novel by itself.
And that's what tells me that
I'm not even halfway through. Actually,
this isn't sci-fi. It's a fantasy.
Well, it is a sci-fi fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, sure.
This film specifically, if we're talking about this film,
So is Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's just too much. There's too much world creation for this to be a standalone sci-fi film. I think it borders pure fantasy versus sci-fi and fantasy.
I don't
We were
think
talking
so.
about
I don't think it's more fantasy than sci-fi. I think it just there's a point in sci-fi where you can't go too far into the future where you can keep elements of like the real world today. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like for example, most of the sci-fi films that we think about whenever we think sci-fi, Blade Runner or Total Recall and all those films, they're in the future, but they're not that far distant into the future, right? Or well, when they were released, right? Because Blade Runner, I guess now we're like past the point where Blade Runner was actually. But they're not that far into the future, so we get to like have those moments with the characters where they feel more recognizable, you know. Whereas this is set in
2000. It's 10,209 or something like
20,000
that.
or 10,000. Yeah, so it's pretty far out there, and we can assume in our heads that putting this book aside, 10,000 years from now is going to look pretty darn different than what it is today.
But you think there's going to be like new like religious offerings and like
I think it's certainly possible. In the last
is going to be running
if you think about it, in the last 2,000 years we got Christianity. In the last
sure, yeah, but we're talking about tangible like
I think it's possible. I think
power.
So it's interesting because one of the main differences between this David Lynch and what Frank Herbert was doing, because I think David Lynch doesn't nearly touch on the themes that Frank Herbert explores in the novel, and I'm only a third of the way through the novel. But from what I've read about Dune as a whole, is that Herbert explores this like the religion aspect of the world that he's created,
right, into
detail, and so much so of like. I read that in the book, Paul Atreides isn't actually the Messiah that the Fremen and the Bene Gesserit are thinking that he is. And in Lynch's version, he makes him the Messiah. Like he's got these powers, he can do all these things, and it doesn't necessarily fit with the same themes that Frank Herbert was going for. So I think what Frank Herbert is trying to say when it comes to religion and all that stuff is very different than what we get in this film, and I can see it happening where like there's so many more different ways of thinking, the philosophy and religion itself when it comes to 10,000 years in the future. I mean, I personally believe that we're just all gonna die.
Right? Yeah.
I don't think we're getting off Earth.
Point. Yeah.
I think we're all going to kill ourselves.
I completely agree that human evolution is going to get to that point of. I mean, I think we saw a very tangible version of what the future could look like in something like a Blade Runner. You know what I mean? Like. Now but I think that was close. That's what
I'm saying. Yeah, that was only
years. But I'm talking about a 10,000 year future. We can see 2049, for instance. We can see a Las Vegas terrain that's been completely shifted and turned into something that's nothing but desert. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we'll see a shifting in geology and like the geography of our planet, and even formulation of humanity and how people look is going to shift. I mean, we've seen that once, we'll see it again. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I'm talking about like, come on, blue eyes. We're talking blue eyes.
That's when you're starting to get into the mythical element, right?
Right. So that's what draws it to fantasy for me.
I don't know. Because I mean, who would have thought that, let's go back 2,000 years from today. Who would have thought that LSD would have made people trip out the way it does? Like that wasn't even a figment of anybody's imagination.
Are you referring to the spice melange?
Yeah, which creates the whole blue eyes thing.
Sure,
so
right.
We don't know what's out there. I think it's totally plausible, and I think it does fit into the science fiction element. And who am I to say, right? I'm this 29-year-old who honestly is only just now reading a book that's been lauded as the best science fiction book of all time.
Right.
So who am I to like say that this isn't science fiction? That's what I'm trying to get to the point to,
Me? I am saying it's not. I mean, it is. Obviously it is because it's set in, definitely. Also, I'm discounting the whole concept that this is on a different planet and that there's numerous different solar systems and I mean, who knows what happens outside of the Milky Way? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there could be a completely new supernatural
Speaking
power.
of the Milky Way, I hate to be coming back to Jodorowsky's Dune because,
No, hit us with it.
we're supposed to be talking about like Lynch's Dune.
Oh,
here,
we're about to dive right into that.
but like we're yeah, okay. Jodorowsky's Dune, Jodorowsky and the people that like worked so closely with him on his Dune project, all say that he is the biggest influence in science fiction that we know today. Swear to God.
From that project. Like the project that never came to being. But because he created this huge book that had everything he wanted in the film. Dude, how can we get one of those books?
I think only 2 exist today, or at least that are known of.
We'll have to find it.
It's interesting because what's the director of Drive?
Oh, shoot. I don't know.
I can't remember how to say his name. It's Nicholas something Ren. I can't remember. Anyways.
Oh, Renfing Ren.
Yeah, sure.
Renfing Ren. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I'm not even going to try. So
Nicholas Renfing Ren.
So he had dinner with Jodorowsky probably a decade ago or more, and during dinner, Jodorowsky turns to him and he's like, "Do you want to see my Dune?" And he's like, "I thought it was never made." And he just brings out this huge
I'd
book
be freaking out.
and goes through page by page the entire thing. And I'm talking, it's this thick, bro. It's huge.
I can't see your second hand, so I gotta know it's massive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like all the
from the floor. It is 4 feet thick.
And he brings out the book and he goes page by page with him and tells him through the entire thing. And he was in this documentary, the Jodorowsky's Dune, and he turns to the camera. He's like, "So in theory, I guess I'm the only person who has seen this Dune."
Right.
I'm the only person who's actually watched the entire.
So who has the other copy of the book?
I'm not sure, but he's the
Mick
one that
Jagger.
mentioned that there's only 2. Yeah.
Hey, yeah. We should.
But so sorry. What I was trying to get to is that
right.
So because they sent that book to every single Hollywood studio that was at that point in production, or not in bankruptcy or whatever, they believe because they all had this, they took elements from his stuff, and you can see it peppered through the thing. And if you watch this documentary,
that's what you
like
were
they
saying.
take straight like moments from these iconic films and intersect with like the storyboards from Jodorowsky's Dune, and it's like almost identical, like exactly close.
Dude,
and
hit us with an example. Blade Runner, for instance.
Okay, I don't remember Blade Runner, but I think there was Blade Runner. I can't remember it right now. But even Star Wars, for example, in Star Wars, like the fighting, some of the exact like fighting moves that they have in Star Wars, they are like you can put them put them one on top of the other, lay them together, and like change the opacity of the top layer, and it just like matches up.
That's so funny.
Just like little stuff like that.
This movie is
Total Recall showed up
marketed
too.
even as the adult version of a Star Wars. Like,
yeah, I mean, I could see it. It definitely has. It's so much more. I feel like Star Wars is like a concise version,
and that's what they were saying was like for people who are looking for like deep and maybe even one of the faults to the film was like you've got words like melange and Arrakis and
Bene Gesserit,
and Kwisatz Haderach and versus words like Jedi and lightsaber and Yoda and like stuff that's, I mean, it just seems so much more approachable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a little easier to digest.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. Okay, let's talk about Lynch a little bit. So, first thoughts, like right off the bat, this is your second time seeing this.
I really like it.
You really like it.
I'm a big fan of Dune.
I'm a big like it's a love-hate relationship, I think.
Absolutely.
There are certain elements I really enjoy, but I think overall I don't think it's a fair adaptation. It doesn't give not only the source, it doesn't give the source like a fair shot at coming across to the audience, but also I don't believe that it comes anywhere near to being like a good movie. And it's interesting because Lynch was in a panel. I saw this on YouTube, actually. Lynch is on a panel. Shoot, I'm trying to remember where he was in this panel, but he's on a panel and this kid asks him on the microphone, he's like, I know you don't I know you've talked about this before because Lynch is like just known to not like this movie and didn't want his name on it. It's like I know you've talked about this before, not liking Dune, but I really love Dune. Do you think there's any chance in the future, or have you in the past gone back to Dune and watched it and given it another shot to see if you enjoy it? And he says, so funny. He says, I don't like Dune. I don't think Dune is a good movie, and I don't think anybody should like Dune. But I guess it's okay that you do. He hates this movie. He hates it. He doesn't think it's a good movie, and I have to agree. There's so much like missing elements. I think you don't. I feel like I've read like halfway through the book, and I have ideas of what's going on.
Yeah,
I can understand it so much better. But I wonder if like somebody coming in clean, not having read a lick of the book, and watches this movie, knows what the hell's going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did.
Yeah, when you first watched it,
right?
Yeah, I guess so.
But I mean,
I think like there's so much
I've got
plot
a little
holes.
bit higher intellect than the average human. So I mean, I don't really want to pump
I feel
myself
like there's
up,
so much plot holes though. There's so many things missing here.
I agree with that. And here's my wife and I, we every time we watch movies, we're always like analyzing how the scenes catch together, and like because a lot of it apart from exposition is contextual, right? Like a movie,
yeah.
A lot of what you're seeing is like, okay, this is happening because of what potentially happened off screen, like this, to get us to this point. And
yeah,
this lacks that piece of it, but also it lacks skilled editing to get us to a place where even exposition can do the work. You know what I mean? So like it's almost like we're getting fragments of scenes, and
exactly.
then we're taking on to the next piece, and it's like, what else happened?
Well, I mean, half of the movie is on the editing floor, so
right,
the cutting room floor. So I mean, there has to be things that are essential to making this completely make sense, and it's not there.
Right.
If we want to talk about exposition though, so. It's interesting because part of what happens here with Blade Runner, right? Like Blade Runner, we talked about how we didn't like the voiceover,
right?
Slash like the monologues, the inner monologues. This also has them, and it has it throughout. It's peppered throughout. It's not nearly as much as Blade Runner, and I think it works in some areas, these inner monologues. But I feel like it's also like shortchanging the actors.
Yeah.
Like it's not giving them a chance to like act what like they're supposed to be thinking. You know what I mean?
You know why those inner dialogues are there.
Well, yeah, because everything was cut out.
Exactly. Every bit of exposition that we should have seen, they cut away, and the only reason those inner dialogue pieces are there are to tell us what they took away. So, I mean, you can just safely assume that wherever there's a bit of inner dialogue, there's a healthy 15 more minutes of screen time that should have gone with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, and also, like, can someone please explain to me why these guys are like sweaty whispering in our ears for every bit of inner dialogue? Like, come on, do these people not think in average voices? Like,
I think I should have taken this shit tonight.
Exactly.
Before coming out here.
Fear's the mind killer.
Now I have to. Fear's the mind killer. I love that.
I do too.
I love that.
There's certain
things. That's not anything to. It's not Lynch. It's
right.
Herbert. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like
life, those kinds of things. Like, what we're doing is we're being completely immersed in a new world, and I think even what I've read, Herbert does a great job, and Lynch does too. I mean, there is no bashing his production design and his world making like that.
I think the best
stuff is primo.
Yeah, so I think the best things Lynch gives us. Yeah, I think the best moments of this film come from Herbert, but I think the best that Lynch gives us is the production design, is what he was able to dream up and all that stuff. But at the same time, there are some really cheesy things. Right. I mean, the Baron Harkonnen is.
I think that might be my favorite part.
Stop it.
No, I'm serious.
No, dude. I mean, he's not a formidable enemy at all. He's not scary. He's not threatening. He's not. He's gross. He got that part right. But like,
yeah. I mean, in the book, does he fly around? Like, does he float around like that?
It's interesting that you say this because now I don't know if he does fly around. Somebody's gonna have to tell us here.
Yeah, we'll have to hear from our audience if he flies around.
But I know that
just us.
Because now I don't know if I'm getting myself confused because Jodorowsky, I think in his he was supposed to fly as well.
Yeah, maybe
so
he
I don't
did.
know.
I'll tell you one thing, dude. He is like a very sexual character, the Baron Harkonnen, and I don't know if that's how it is in the book because I haven't gotten that far. But like in the movie, he's very like I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like I mean, the vibe that he gives off as if he wants to like sexually devour every single person he comes across. You know what I mean?
Well, the whole what is that? A heart tube? Is that what it is? A heart plug. A heart plug. Like,
dude,
that's kind of silly. But,
silly, dude. The first when he pulled that guy's heart plug in the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so violent.
Also, Sting is in this. I didn't know Sting was in this.
And what's so funny is like Sting's in there. And I don't know if this is before Sting's takeoff in music career or not. I don't know.
Yeah, he was already in the police. The police were. Yeah. I mean, the police from the get-go were.
I think that was just a money draw. It had to have been.
It was actually
the same
because
reason Mick Jagger's and Hodorowski's.
Right, Hodorowski like always had an idea. So like for example, he wanted Salvador Dali because he wanted the emperor to be like very extravagant, and Salvador Dali was very extravagant. It's funny because Hodorowski, we're going back to Hodorowski here. Hodorowski wanted Salvador Dali so much, but Salvador Dali wanted to be like the highest paid actor of all time. So he said, I want to be paid $100,000 for every hour I'm acting.
Absolutely,
and he's
as he should.
And obviously Hodorowski's like, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But he goes back to his producer, and with his producer, they decide, let's go back to him and offer $100,000 per minute, as long as he's only in it for like 5 minutes. So they went back to Salvador Dali and were like, we're going to give you $100,000 for every minute you're in the film. And then he was only in the film for 5 minutes. And then he was only going to be in the film for 5 minutes. And they were going to create a mechanical version of him to like stand in for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
But anyways, so I think Hodorowski wanted like specific elements. It's funny to me because when I looked at Hodorowski's stuff, he wanted Pink Floyd in there. You know, he wanted all these big names.
Yeah. I mean, Pink Floyd did the like musical score for the first one, right? For Hodorowski's version.
Yeah, they wanted it to. No, he was supposed to. Pink Floyd was supposed to do the themes for, I think, the House of Atreides, and then some other rock group was supposed to do.
I see.
The themes for the Harkonnen, House Harkonnen.
I see.
So it's interesting. That's a very interesting thing to be trying to do. Whereas here we just got Toto.
That's okay though. Toto does a fine job.
I was gonna say that they do a fine job, but I think it's just funny that like we go from like Pink Floyd to Toto, like on the spectrum.
How do you know? Like, Toto could have been just blowing the charts up in 1984.
Then again, they did do
Africa,
right? Bless the rain down in Africa.
Yes, I guess which is what a perfect fitting thing for the rain that doesn't even belong at the end of the movie. Oh my gosh! Like, please, someone explain to me how a planet that survives on dryness and this spice is now blessing the rain that's pouring down on them.
That's something that doesn't really make sense to me.
Doesn't make sense at all.
In the film, it looks like it's gonna like rain forever for a long time.
The worms are going to die.
But that's what I was gonna say. Like as far as I know, the worms won't survive, and not only that, that's what it is. The spice comes from the worms. Yeah.
So like, what? So, are we happy that Paul Atreides just ruined this?
I think David Lynch was just like, fuck it, I'm not doing another one. It's funny because
in 1 second of screen time, he just ruined 5 other books.
Yeah, like you can't even make any sequels. I don't feel
exactly. Like. Yeah, we're gonna dry this planet out again.
But that's what's interesting too, is that like, so Lynch makes Paul Atreides the actual Messiah instead of like what Herbert does, where Paul Atreides becomes the Messiah, even though he's not the Messiah, but he becomes the Messiah because people believe in him.
Right.
So like, it's almost like he's not the Messiah, but just because people believe in him, he's
right.
Yeah, exactly. So with Lynch making him the Messiah and giving him all these powers, it totally like defies what the rest of the books do.
Yeah.
Because from as far as I know, I haven't read them, but the next 3 books are like about Paul's fall.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the second one is actually entitled Dune Messiah.
Well, he's like a hero in the first one,
right?
And then in the second one, it's like Herbert is just telling us that like even our heroes are mortal, basically. Like they can't withstand that. Like power corrupts and all that stuff. So,
right.
It's interesting. I really want to keep reading the series. But yeah, Lynch is just like, I'm not coming back to this. We're not going to do a sequel, and let's just give him peace, which has nothing to do with what Herbert does with the rest of the series.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, let's talk about another plot hole, like the rain, those weirding weapons. I mean, there's one single scene in the film where that was really frustrating to me. Yui say, "Oh, the weirding weapons, they've all been destroyed," and then like 10 minutes later, we see an entire army of people holding new weirding weapons. Yeah,
like, that's the bag that they were carrying around. They had 1,000 weirding weapons in there.
Yeah. So that kind of weirded me out. But one thing I really digged about the whole thing was those shields that they made. Like
okay. So I mean, it doesn't look terrible for the time.
The time, dude. That had to have been revolutionary.
I'm sure, but like, bro, the trailer for Dune does that so much better. Please tell me you, just
like me, watched this and then immediately went and watched the trailer for the new one, because now I'm ready to see correlation. Yes, those. And here's another thing: the action of where they hold the knife up to their head.
Yeah,
that's another thing, is like, just based on what I know from the book already and what I've read, like weirding is not at all that.
No,
like,
so weirding is like,
it's like
so the Bene Gesserit,
in a sense.
Yeah, so sort of. So those shields, that the personal shields or whatever that they have, it renders weapons
projectile
weapons useless. So that's another thing. Like, the weirding thing does not make sense, because technically all these other, at the end of the film, the final battle scene in the film, all these other people that they're going against, the Harkonnens or whatever, I can't remember the name of the army that the Emperor brought with him. I can't remember.
Harkonnens.
No, it wasn't Harkonnen. It was something that started with a B, I think. I can't remember. Anyways, besides the point.
They all have the peanut guy in the tank, right?
Sure, I don't remember
that guy's name, who was only in there for 12 seconds.
But what I'm saying is that all those guys should have the shielding, the shields.
Sure.
So those the weirding weapons, the modules shouldn't work. Period.
Well,
because they are projectile.
They're not projectile. That's just energy.
From what I saw, they were.
No, that was just an energy. That was just an energy, not projecile. Because remember,
agree to disagree.
No, you cannot. It's fact that it's not the case.
Disagree.
You can't disagree.
I'm going to disagree. When you disagree with 2 episodes already this season, I'm going to disagree on this point.
When Paul Atreides is first learning how to weird with Gurney, and which is another thing, Patrick Stewart, I did not realize that he was in this. But when Gurney and Yui are teaching him how to weird in the beginning, and he's fighting that weirding robot or whatever, he hits him 2 or 3 times, and then there's one point where he fires it at it, and it's just an energy beam, and then the arm of the robot catches on fire.
Yeah, but the other 2 times he does it, they like break off. So I don't know.
I think it's just pure. Yeah. So because 2 of the 3 times it was a projectile, 1 time it was just not pure energy.
Majority wins, dude.
So dumb. No, it depends on what he's saying. Cha-ska is projectile, whereas Muad'Dib,
that's so stupid, dude. I that's such a dumb such a dumb plot element. Like, I don't like it at all. I was so disappointed. Like, reading so the weirding way in the book is like, it's a hand-to-hand close proximity fighting like style, basically. And basically like they're able to like be faster than the other one. So like the Bene Gesserit are faster than other people when it comes to like hand-to-hand combat. So this thing about like they're riding the worm and they're shooting from up top, that has nothing to do with weirding.
Do you think
they're far away?
Do you think that's I mean, we talk about Lovecraftian horror in a way. We see very little of that because of what a Lovecraftian concept is. We're not able to relay that in film. We're not able to show to the viewer what a cosmic or Lovecraftian horror looks like, because a Lovecraftian concept is without tangibility. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Do you think that in 84,
to an extent, right? Like there are definite like monsters in the Lovecraft series.
But I think when we talk about that, the Things monster would have been like the pinnacle of what a Lovecraftian monster. A Lovecraftian monster is like a culmination of so many different things, to the point where it's actually lacking any sort of form at all.
Sure.
But whatever.
Go ahead. Continue your point. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, do you think in 1984, like the concept of why we don't see cosmic horror often, David Lynch was like, shoot, like, there's this concept of the weirding way. Now, how am I going to make this Because I mean, look at what we see in the trailer for Dune. We already see what we would call an adequate representation of a glimpse of what weirding looks like, but only because we have the technology to make those shields and like to see human speed better than another. Maybe he just wasn't able to render a concept of what weirding should look like on screen, so he just opted out of it completely and made these silly triangular guns that sometimes shoot projectiles and sometimes shoot beams of energy.
I don't know. I don't like it.
It's hard. I don't either. I don't like it either. But it's hard to understand from 1984's point of view.
Here's my thing, right? Because like they show the hand-to-hand combat portion when he's going versus Gurney, and he does the slow blade thing. Yeah. So that element's there. It's there, and also like Paul knows the weirding way before he ever gets out to the desert. But the first time we ever talk about the weirding way is when he's out in the desert. You know what I mean?
We talk about the weirding way in that room when he's fighting the robot and his arms catches on fire.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we see all the weirding weapons that get destroyed.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, so let's go back to that training scene. Like, he does the hand-to-hand combat and then does the weirding way. They could have just put those two together there with the hand-to-hand combat.
Oh, right. And
it was like
that's
right
another
there
thing
for
is
them.
like when he's training his army on Arrakis, one thing he says is this is one part of the weirding way, but all we see in the film is
so maybe it was cut. So maybe the weirding modules were like extra, and then the actual weirding way that we see in the book was cut completely
maybe that was
from the movie.
the production team final edit that was like, we just saw Star Wars, which is nothing but blasters, so people want these triangle guns.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
you mentioned Star Wars and like. David Lynch was actually going to
Return of the Jedi
I know. Instead of this.
I know.
And he turned it down because he felt like it was so confusing. Yeah. He didn't feel like it would it was such a enormous like thing to compile into the movie. Right. And then he takes this, which is like
exactly.
so much larger than a Return of the Jedi would have been.
Yeah. I don't know what he was thinking, dude. I don't know what he was thinking.
It's so funny though, because I read that like he was driving around on like George Lucas and his Ferrari like around ILM when he was like debating whether he was going to take Return of the Jedi or not. Like,
that's so funny.
I can just imagine Can you imagine George Lucas driving David Lynch around in a Ferrari?
Dude, what a picture! That's the next comedians in cars getting coffee. Yeah, I don't know. I dig the movie for sure. I think there's so many concepts that I can get on board with, and like, I mean, what it feels like is kind of a weird, perverse labyrinth in a way, like. It's got that same feeling. Did you ever watch The Neverending Story? It kind of feels like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that movie.
I do too. It's like that. Like what we're seeing is concepts we've never heard of before. Whereas Star Wars kind of takes these ideas of space travel and just pageant-sizes them a little bit. Gives them a little bit more
dresses them up a little bit. Yeah,
exactly. Whereas this is like a completely new concept, like a labyrinth or something like that, where it's like
this really is
costumed creatures in a way.
Yeah, this really is like a bummer because no one was ever going to succeed in putting Dune into 1 2-hour movie.
Right.
Like, there's nobody that would succeed getting that right. It just doesn't. You can't.
No. And we'll see that next year, right? We'll see that. We'll see that half of the first novel is going to be pure excellence. And
yeah, I'm sure.
Just based on the trailer, it's hard not to believe that. Like,
yeah. It really is a bummer because like the story's so compelling, even in Lynch's version, even though there's a bunch of like missing points there. Right. It's compelling. Like there's a compelling story there.
It was your first time. Did you feel like you were drifting off? Like I was locked in the last time I watched it.
No, yeah. So I wasn't. I think I started like maybe losing interest in the movie itself. After the scene with Lady Jessica and Paul in the desert, like where they meet the Fremen for the first time. Yeah. So after that, it just kind of like I started losing interest. It was just like that's the other thing. They meet the Fremen, they go down into this rock, and then they see all that water, and they make a whole point about this water. There's a bunch of pools like this, and then at the end there's the rain. Like it just makes that whole thing pointless.
It broke it. That broke the movie.
It just,
it broke the movie. It broke the whole concept of what we're fighting for to begin with is all lost in that 30-second rainstorm.
Yeah. there's just little things throughout the movie that like just like bother me. So like for example, that scene where Lady Jessica and Paul first meet the Fremen, like they're so like we get that point in the beginning of the movie where Paul is sitting with his back to the door, and he makes a point about like I would have known the difference. I would have known it was imitation. So like he was trained by his mother. So everything Paul knows, Lady Jessica knows just as well.
Right.
Or maybe not better, but just as well, right? Because Paul's supposed to be like this.
The Kwisatz Haderach.
Yeah. So, but like, so these two people, Paul and Lady Jessica, they're supposed to like have this great hearing, and they make a really small point to it in the film where like they didn't hear the Fremen, but it's almost like it's just not enough. Like I don't think it gives enough to the Fremen and how stealthy they are. It just doesn't give it. And the other thing is that like the story is so compelling, and I think there are in the book the characters are very compelling as well. And we don't get enough time with them.
No,
like Duncan Idaho, we see him twice in the film.
That was so frustrating.
And the way he dies is so like
he's
throwaway.
Supposed to be a key character.
Yeah, I got no time at all. Like that's one thing I'm really excited about Villeneuve is that like not only it's Jason Momoa, I know he'll do a great job, and like I'm gonna get to actually know this character a little bit more before he dies.
Because like in this one, Leto, we saw almost nothing of him. And dude, Oscar Isaacs, that's all we can dream of.
But I mean, it's everything, right? Like Gurney, like all these characters, I don't feel like they get enough. Like we don't get to really know them.
I think out of all of them, Gurney, like of the House of Atreides, Gurney probably gets the most.
But still, it's very fleeting. Like even the when he meets Gurney again after in the desert, it's just like very fleeting, very like casual, like toss aside kind of thing. It just doesn't like feel.
Dude, what? Gurney trained this guy for years, and how he didn't even recognize him? I don't understand. He's like,
bro, when you're in the desert, you start seeing hallucinations.
Exactly. Your eyes turn blue and everything changes. Yeah, dude. I dig it though. I dig it.
Also, bro, that's another thing. We're talking about Blade Runner earlier. Sean Young is Chani in this. And she also that's another thing. As far as I've seen so far, like Lady Jessica is a huge part in the book.
Right.
Like, and she's like. She taught Paul how to do everything. She taught Paul how to like fight the weirding way and all that stuff.
Right.
So like she is just a formidable ally, and in the film she's just like a woman that doesn't know really what she's doing. That's what I'm saying. But like even Chani, I haven't gone to Chani in the book yet, but I'm assuming she's going to be a great warrior. She's a Fremen, but in the movie she's like
right. And the major problem with that is that we've taken what should have been 2 feature films or 1 4-hour movie and condensed it down.
Airplane just went right over my house.
Crazy. It was too condensed, and you can tell. Even if you didn't know that it was books before, like you can watch it and be like, I feel like I'm missing so much. Like just in edits alone, like the way it's edited alone, it just feels so broken.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I read that David Lynch was working on the script for the second one before the final cut was created. Yeah. So apparently there were like plans for sequels.
Oh, he bailed quick after that.
I'm sure. I mean, he says that like the experience he had making this is what caused him to like every time he makes a movie from here on out is he wants final cut. Yeah. He wants final cut.
Right.
And I mean, he got it because in his own way, he really is a legend. Like what he's not, you may not understand all of his films, but he like sticks to his guns. He is like what he is, and he does his film the way he wants.
I mean, he's a trademark now. Like exactly. David Lynch films,
Yeah, you know what you're getting yourself into.
Right. I mean, Eraserhead, Elephant Man, was that him too? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
But even Elephant Man feels a little bit more tame compared to what he started doing afterwards.
Right. I mean, Mulholland Drive is super weird. Twin Peaks,
Jesus.
Yeah.
Hey, Kyle
MacLachlan.
MacLachlan,
yeah. This was his start, right?
This is his first film.
Yeah.
Apparently, like he was doing plays out in Oregon or something like that before this.
So what? The One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Jack Nicholson,
yeah.
There's a character in that who's actually Baron Harkonnen's sidekick in this one with the crazy eyebrows.
Yeah.
Who Duke Leto blows his gas tooth into and kills.
Oh, Peter.
Yep, Peter in this one, he was the a supporting actor in that movie, and those were his only 2 roles. But dude? He slayed in One Who Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest.
I think he did good here too, though.
Right, exactly. Yeah. He's powerful, dude. He does a really good job. But those are
he's only done 2 roles.
Yeah,
that's so interesting.
Everything else was really, really small credited, like television episodes or whatever. But 2.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then like you were talking about the Blade Runner girl, Rachel from Blade Runner. What's her name? Michelle.
Sean Young.
Sean
Young. Yeah.
I got Sean Hayes. Anyway, so yeah. I mean, there were some starts here. Blade Runner was before this, but really good.
Yeah,
really, maybe my favorite movie of all time.
Well, apparently some of these, like even Duke Leto and the lady who played the Reverend Mother, apparently they were huge actors at the time. Maybe not huge. I won't say
Max
like
Van
but
Sydow's in this too, right?
That was a surprise.
Right,
that was a surprise.
Yep, he's still big.
But I mean, that's another character that like we never see again.
That frustrated me.
What? Like
that frustrated me.
That's a character that shows up in the book multiple times. Like we don't. Anyways.
Yeah. There's moments like that. I'm happy to see a remake for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I can't be mad at David Lynch for this though.
No,
it's not really his fault.
And I read a lot of things that went the adverse way and say like David Lynch blames this on the production company, but let's be honest, this movie was going to be trash regardless. And I disagree. I think if we could see David Lynch's final cut, the full 4 hours of what he was going to have, I want to believe that there was exposition in there that we lost out on.
But here's the interesting thing. Multiple times have studios come up to David Lynch and be like, we want you to make a final cut version of Dune. And he's like, hell no.
That makes sense. He just doesn't want his name tied to this version of it still.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was in Jodorowsky's Dune. He says that his heart was broken when nobody would take this film. And finally they gave up on it. And when he found out that this was getting made, he was like, he had a respect for David Lynch, but he hated the fact that it was getting made without him, right?
Yeah.
And finally, his son was supposed to play Paul at the time.
Right.
And his son was only like 15 at the time that they were supposed to be shooting. So it lines up with the novel pretty well.
Right.
Whereas like here, Paul is not, he's like in his mid-20s maybe.
Right.
So, but anyways... So his son drags him along to the theaters, like we have to see these with our heads held high. We got to see this. And as the credits started coming up, he was like, just disappointed sitting there in the theater. And as the movie progressed, he just started laughing and being like, he felt bad for Lynch, but he was like, this movie is terrible.
Yeah.
And he was just like having the best time. He was so happy that the movie was so bad.
Yeah, dude. I mean, strip away any sentiment you have or like certain things. The movie's trash.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's trash.
It's not good.
I like it. I like it and respect it for its position in culture. Like,
yeah, we've said this so many times, but I like it for what it is.
Right. For what it is.
I like it for what it tried to do.
Bag of steamy garbage. I like it. It's the best bag of garbage I've ever seen. No, I like it. And come on, dude. Let's give him the credit for just world creation alone. Like,
yeah,
it's
incredible.
Yeah, it looks good.
Did really. I love that. It's really beautiful, that scene where they're leaving their home planet to go to Arrakis.
Yep.
And they're just like going into that, like, what is that? Like a keyhole? I don't even know.
Right.
It looks like a keyhole, like a brass keyhole.
Folding time.
And they're gonna full time. Yeah, that's another interesting thing. I want to see what Villeneuve does with that, with the folding time, even though it's a very small element of this book, at least so far. But I want to see how he messes with that.
There's certain things that are just gonna be like, that are gonna give me goosebumps in the new one. Yeah, like,
I'm really excited.
How he does the worm in general just already is like blowing me away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that it got moved back a year. I mean, I get it. The studio wants to make money, so they want to make sure that.
Dude, after Tenet's bomb, I'm sure that
it wasn't a complete bomb, but it did not make nearly the amount of money that it should have made.
They lost like $20 million or something.
Oh, yeah, that's not nearly that bad considering how expensive the film was.
For a Nolan movie, that's a bomb.
No, I agree. Yeah,
yeah.
It's so funny, right? All these movies like got postponed. Like, it makes sense because this is a big movie,
right?
Dune is huge, and Villeneuve wants to make a sequel, and they were waiting to see if I'm sure they're gonna make a sequel, dude. But I'm sure they're gonna start like working on the sequel before this one comes out next year, because the amount of hype there is around it, like you go on the internet and it's everywhere.
Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking about the other day. Like the current state of things, the pandemic has really put studios in general in kind of like this really unique position, because there's a fine line of like, you could really boost sales through this thing if we can like if we can market it a certain way and keep hype going to a certain point to where like it gets released at a right time, like sales and hype around stuff can, because right now like a lot of studios aren't prostrated in the way of like, you know, so many people are waiting on award season. Or,
well, I mean, that's what Tenet was supposed to be, right? It was supposed to be like the return to the theaters, like Tenet was supposed to be.
Yeah,
and then
I mean,
like,
it was our return to theaters.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it was worthy. I feel like Tenet was worthy as a return to theater, but
it was great.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like it's one of those things, right? I like starting the beginning of this year. Tenet was like my most anticipated film, and walking out of Tenet, I realized that it should have been Dune. Not that Tenet was bad, but like
Dune can be your most anticipated movie of 2021.
Yeah, now it is, right? So I guess Tenet was a 2020, and now Dune is 2021.
Somebody released something the other day that was like, my top favorite comedy movies of 2020 so far, and I'm like, oh, great. How long is the list? Like 4 movies long? I don't know what are you pulling from here? Like I haven't seen a new
Netflix
movie.
Originals.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. 6 Underground is my favorite movie of 2020.
That came out last year, though.
Oh gosh, we're really pushed into a corner here. Well, I guess there's a couple of things like
that movie was.
I'm thinking of Ending Things was good, and
I've been wanting to watch
Devil
that.
All the Time came out, and
Devil All the Time was good.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess on to next week's episode, we'll be focusing on the sci-fi original Dune, the series that Sci-Fi Channel put out. Yep, lots of exposition to go through there.
We're talking about Total. Is it Total Recall next week?
Total Recall.
Yeah, Total Recall.
Yep. Yeah, we're really getting close to the end of the season here.
I actually watched it last night.
Both.
I watched the remake this morning, and then I watched the.
Was that your first time? Was that your first time watching the remake?
No, I watched it when it came out in theaters, but I hadn't watched the original when I watched the remake.
Yeah.
But also the remake, I remember not liking it, and this time let's wait till next week.
Yeah.
I don't want to give too much away.
Just wait. Okay.
I don't want to give too much away.
Let's not. All right. Until next time, friends.